welcome to this very special program. I'm Neha Khanna. We're all here today for an event whose entire design and purpose is to try and inject some positivity into the current environment, which we can all agree is filled with gloom, pain, and suffering. We hope that today's talk will offer you a fresh and possibly alternative perspective on our world and inspiration to many people around the globe. Before I invite our special guest, I'd like to tell you a bit about the people behind this event. The Global Education and Leadership Foundation, or tGelf, is a non-profit organization led by Mr. Shiv Vikram Khemka. The organization seeks to identify, nurture, and support leadership skills in individuals who are rooted in the values of altruism and who have a bias for action. In the last decade, tGelf's flagship school curriculum on ethical leadership and entrepreneurship has reached over 3,000 schools across 14 countries, touching the lives of more than 3 million students. tGelf's community of future leaders and change makers have also undertaken numerous high impact projects that have collectively impacted the lives of over 500 million people and raised over $6.38 billion in commitments from governments, philanthropists, corporations, and multinationals for the UN Sustainable Goals. tGelf's entrepreneurship initiatives, including the Entrepreneurship World Cup in partnership with MISC Foundation and Global Entrepreneurship Network, and the newly launched flagship competition, Entrepreneurship Sports Generation, have attracted over 300,000 entrepreneurs from around the world, offering them support at multiple levels. Now let's introduce our guest of honor for the evening. We are privileged to have in our midst today Sri M, a well-known spiritual guide, social reformer, and educationist. Sri M is the author of best-selling books like Yoga, Also for the Godless, and On Meditation. He has successfully transformed millions of lives around the world, and his profound knowledge of ancient Indian wisdom and its ability to master the human mind, body, and soul. Sri M is going to talk to all of us today about building courage and calmness in these challenging times and the yogic science behind it. Without further ado, we give you Sri M. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you very much. So, I've been given a topic, building courage and calmness, the yogic science behind it. Yeah, very important topic at the moment, because we know that many people, not all, but many people are almost down and out. They don't know what to do with this pandemic that has set in, and the conflicting reports of positive, negative, everything coming together. Sometimes it looks like a mess, but I'm sure we will get out of this, because there is always a light at the end of the day. This is my belief, understanding, and experience. So, the yogic science behind it, it's a good title. First, therefore, I want to discuss the Bhagavad-Gita. You know, the word Bhagavad-Gita is known to many people. It's an ancient text which has come down to us. In fact, it is so important that in the study of Vedanta, it's one of the important aspects of the curriculum. So, why is the Gita important, and what has it to do with building courage and calmness? First, let me tell you that it is a yogic text. Well, it has a narrative of the war and Krishna leading the chariot of Arjuna into the Kurukshetra war. That is the narrative, but the underlying essence, the core of the teaching is yoga. From simple fact that every chapter of the Gita, there are 18 chapters, are called yoga. It starts with Arjuna Vishada Yoga and ends with the 18th chapter, which is the Sannyas Yoga. So, look at it carefully. There is a battle taking place, the battle of Kurukshetra. Some people, you can look at it historical context, or you can look at it as an actual battle that takes place in our lives, day-to-day lives, every day, every minute, 24/7. This is the real battle of Kurukshetra. And who are the two characters, main characters? There is Arjuna going into battle on the chariot. And who is his charioteer? Krishna, who smiles innocently and leads the chariot. I mean, he appears to be innocent, but he is the master planner behind the whole thing. So, here starts the Gita. What is the first chapter of the Gita? It's called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which means the yoga of Arjuna's sorrow, the yoga of Arjuna's despair. You can translate it in many ways. The yoga of Arjuna's depression. Actually, he goes into a depression because he sees the enemy before him. He finds various excuses to not fight the enemy. He says, my relatives are standing in front of me, how can I fight them, and so on and so forth. The real fact is there is a fear that he might lose the battle. He finds many reasons not to fight, but he is afraid that if he loses the battle, what will happen? His name would go down to the dust, and the whole Pandavas will be very upset that he led the war and they have all failed. So, failure is staring him in the face. And what is the excuse he uses? No, I can't do this, I just cannot fight, I cannot get into this battle. And the wonderful psychiatrist, psychologist, yogi, warrior, all put together, Krishna, leads him through this and ultimately makes him take up the bow which he has almost thrown down and say, let's fight and win this battle. So, you know the result. Finally, the Pandavas won the battle. I think in our present situation, the real Pandavas are the medical personnel, the doctors, the nurses, the people who are working behind this, the social workers, the charitable societies, the government, everyone who is involved in facing this conflict which we are having today, this pandemic headlong. Especially I must mention the doctors and nurses again, because daily they are exposed to this virus and still no one has got back. They are almost as if Krishna has whispered into their ears, go forward, you are going to win the battle. And that taking such a big risk is impossible even to calculate. So, I think some of us already have this courage and calmness in us. Now, there is a particular term used in the Gita which I need to dwell on, which is very good for us to think about now. When Arjuna asks Krishna, who according to you is the greatest of yogis, or one who has understood yoga, the yogic science, Krishna says a couple of definitions, of which the most important is someone who is considered to be have his mind calm and courageous in the midst of all circumstances. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. No, sorry. Sarva bhuta hite rataha means who has the welfare of all living beings. Okay, let me put all the three together. First qualification, according to Krishna, of a yogi is one who is sarvatra samabuddhaya, which means one who keeps his mind calm and courageous and quiet in the midst of all circumstances, whatever be the circumstances. You know what happens with that? If your mind can, if you can learn how to, I am going to discuss a few practical things at the end, but let's look at the theory first. The calm mind, the quiet mind, the mind which is quiet and calm is the mind which can face any situation boldly and courageously. One. Second, a calm mind takes correct decisions. An agitated mind cannot take correct decisions. It's only when the mind is calm that the brain works properly and you come to the right decision. So, building courage means also building calmness from my point of view, from the yogic point of view, from the point of view of the ancient science of yoga, which we should be proud originated in this country, right. So, this is the time when we should learn how to keep our minds quiet, calm, and relaxed so that the mind is able to work clearly and sharply and see how we can get out of the situation. I'm talking about the present times, of course. It can be applied at any time, but now. I said already that a calm, quiet mind with no conflict whatsoever comes out with the right solutions. It gets rid of the fear which comes due to imagination. Imagination, the mind, again in the Gita, Krishna says the mind can be your friend, the mind can also be your enemy. The mind which is our enemy we don't need. We need the mind that's our friend. So how to cultivate the mind to be a friend so that we have positive energy and positive visualization by which the negative thoughts that bring fear and defeat in our mind can be completely banished. Well, it can't be completely banished, but at least you can keep them at bay and move forward. Because human beings always have some fear. It's only the foolish who don't have fear. The human mind which thinks has fear when it is facing an emergency, understood. But the way to tackle that fear, what you fear, is through a calm mind, and that is called the sthita prajna. A yogi is called a person whose prajna or mind or consciousness is steady. It does not go up and down depending on the circumstances, and therefore that mind becomes a potent weapon to handle any situation. This is the science of yoga. Right. So, two words. One, sarvatra samabuddhaya, which means to keep calm and quiet under all circumstances. Easier said than done, but can be done through abhyasa, through practice. Because when you understand the fact that it is the calm mind that can offer solutions, it is the calm mind which can build courage in others. Look, somebody comes to me in panic, right? And if I also panic, how do I build this guy's courage? Somebody comes to me, someone is dying, he's gasping for breath, there is no oxygen available. If I also panic, how do I go about getting this person what she or he wants? How do I do it? I have to be calm and say, relax, let's work on this. Let's work. So it's essential to have a calm mind. And a person who has a calm mind is called a sthita prajna, whose consciousness, whose mind. A calm mind is a creative mind. It's not a lazy mind. Don't say, I'm calm, therefore I'm sleeping. That's sleep. It's different from having prajna. Prajna is consciousness. So, keeping your mind steady, quiet and calm, in full shape and sharp is what we need to do under the circumstances, especially these circumstances. I know there's another aspect to this, which is compassion. I think a mind which has compassion, which is kind, which wants to do good to others, sarva bhuta hiterata, another definition, one who has the welfare of all living beings in his heart. When this happens, then the mind finds ways and means to bring about a solution. Where there is a will, there is a way. We cannot say there is no way. Yes, there is a way. And if there have been times when we were defeated, like Arjuna almost accepted defeat during the Kurukshetra war, you can still stand up and fight. You can get up from that. Use that failure and defeat as a stepping stone to what you're going to do next. Find out why you failed and succeed later. I mean, these are some of the aspects of yoga, Vedanta, Gita, and so on, which I would like to discuss with you. Now, let's come to the practical aspect. People say you can say all these things, but how do we keep the mind quiet? First, deeply understand this fact that it is the calm mind which is an effective mind, a potent mind. When this goes into your subconscious, the subconscious will work out ways and means to keep your mind calm. Okay. Now, how do you help this? Now, there are yogic techniques to do this. I am not saying that you can stop the virus through yogic techniques. That's not what I am saying. Please, I don't want to go into superstitions. Allopathy has done a great job. Vaccination is going on. Wear your masks, keep yourself safe, wash your hands, disinfect, do all this. Social distancing have to be practiced. And don't worry about the masks. For 1,000 years, the Jain monks have been wearing masks. There was no COVID at that time. Don't get worried about that. This is a time when we need to take all scientific precautions. Please, when you go into yogic science, you're not becoming suspicious. I'm sorry, you're not becoming superstitious. You're actually becoming scientific. So let's be scientific about it. All these, okay, done. But the main thing that defeats the mind and the body is fear. So this is where we come into the picture, how to handle this fear, how to, couple of things. One, death comes to everybody, but that doesn't mean that it should come to you now. When you understand this, there is already a kind of calmness coming into the mind, because you see, you're not concerned only about yourself, you're concerned about the hundreds of people who are dying before you. So you take courage. And then when you take courage, you become calm because you want to handle this. This again is the theoretical or philosophical, psychological aspect of it. We'll come again to the practicals. The science of yoga, the most important text in the science of yoga is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, apart from Hatha Yoga, Pradipika and so on, which are minor texts which came later. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are the most important text on the science of yoga. And the definition of yoga according to Patanjali is Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is the elimination of all the distractions of the mind and all the oscillation of the mind so that it becomes quiet and clear. When it becomes quiet and clear, it has tremendous energy, and this is the energy we need to teach people how to tap. By also understanding theoretically, it's only when the mind is free of vrittis, when it is calm and quiet, that it has tremendous energy, and that energy can see you through most situations, and if you can share it with others, they can also move through very dangerous situations. You know also that when the mind is calm and quiet, your immunity also is boosted. When you get fear and you're worried, I'm going to die, the immunity also becomes lower. I'm not saying that you shouldn't give oxygen to somebody who's gasping for oxygen. Let's be practical. However, it's not just the oxygen, it's the fear that plays a big role and reduces your immunity. So, to be fearless, to build courage and to keep a calm mind is a good way to boost your immunity and be ready for how to take action against the situation. Right. Coming back to yoga, after Patanjali says Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means how to clear the distractions of the mind, so the mind is calm, and the calm mind is a powerful system of energy by itself. Now, to bring this about, various techniques have been described by Patanjali, starting with the rules and regulations, which is basically to eat nutritious food and not go to extremes, which is very important to us at this moment also, and the different postures which boost your immunity, which are the yogasanas. Remember, don't forget the medical instructions. Wear your masks, maintain social distancing, use disinfectant, but that's not enough. Build up the strength of your mind, most important. So as you build up the strength of your mind, then you will see how solutions offer themselves. Everything becomes clear. The fear element becomes less, and therefore your immunity increases. Your immunity is boosted. Now, among the techniques described by Patanjali to bring about a calm mind, to free the chitta of all the distractions, Asanas are one, the most important is pranayama. Now, how does pranayama play a role in this? Very simple. When the mind is agitated, the rhythm of breathing is distracted and agitated. When the mind is calm and quiet, the pattern of breath is also calm and quiet. So, pranayama is based on the fact that if the mind state can be reflected in the rhythm of your breath, can it work otherwise? Can it work the other way around? Can we calm the breath and therefore calm the mind and make it quiet? Because a calm and quiet mind is a wonderful, energy filled mind with courage. So, how do we go about it? It's very simple. I can't go into all the pranayams. There is a whole subject available to you. If you do proper breathing, then you can also kind of irrigate your lungs with enough oxygen. And the yogic breathing is, I'm going to demonstrate, it's not just a theoretical discussion. Learn to breathe deeply. We have forgotten how to breathe deeply. When I say breathe deeply, take a full breath, not just surface breathing with your nostril like, no, like this. See, suppose I open my mouth and do, I'm doing the same thing with my closed mouth. Why do you think people yawn? Because there is less oxygen and the body is trying to fix it. Right? So, take a deep breath. Hold for a second. Count till 3 or 4. Don't strain yourself. Then breathe out. If you want the upper and lower part of your lungs to be filled up, it's a good idea to raise your hands and breathe in. Down. Do this every day at least 10 times. This is one. The other breathing exercise and the technique is called the Brahmary. Now, Brahmary, a Brahmar is the bumblebee that comes near your window and buzzes. Now, there is a yogic technique in which you begin to buzz like a bumblebee by making the same sound that the bumblebee makes, in which it involves taking your deep breath and while you breathe out, hum. Other day I saw somebody in the YouTube saying, hum your way to oxygen. What happens when you do this? When you do this practice of Brahmary, I am demonstrating once more. Deep breath. It's proved that it builds nitric oxide inside your sinuses. And nitric oxide is a great deterrent to viral infections. I am not particularly naming a virus, but to all viral infections. So, produce nitric oxide by doing the Brahmary. Learn to breathe deeply. Hold, exhale. And if you do this for a few days, you build up your resistance, your oxygen irrigation becomes much faster, and in fact you can survive with less oxygen that you would normally require. This is the practical technique of yoga. Now, before I stop this short talk, is there a chanting by which you can bring about a certain calmness of mind? There is no better chant than the sound of Om. So how do you do it? There is no special technique for this. Just sit down quietly, take a few deep breaths and chant like this. Om. Notice that the last part, ma, is the Brahmari actually. So, so these are some of the practical techniques which we discussed in the short term available. However, remember this, that a calm mind is a fit mind, and you can be cultivated, it can be developed when you understand the fact that inside you there is an infinite source of energy which Vedanta has called yourself, and this energy can be tapped if you can keep your mind quiet. And the best way to keep your mind quiet is to calm your breath. So last I am going to give you a method of calming your breath, and that is close your eyes, give complete attention to your breath. You see how important the breath is? You can live without water, you can live without food for some time. Without breath, not for a minute. So yet we don't give any attention to the breath. For a change, give attention to your breath. Don't control it in any way. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and as you breathe in, naturally or deliberately, slowly, give complete attention to the breath coming in. Okay. Hold for a second. Watch your breath going out. So you're watching your breath coming in and you're watching your breath going out. There is no particular mantra required, although some schools ask you to chant hum when you breathe in and saw when you breathe out, or the other way around, doesn't matter. So, whatever. The main thing is to give attention to your breath. Do that for 5 minutes and the rhythm of your breath settles down and becomes very quiet. And in that quietness, you get tremendous energy to handle any situation. So, having discussed the theory of building courage and calmness as taught by the ancient science of yoga in this country, which has now become universal phenomenon now, and also giving you a few practical techniques, I think I will now wind up. And before that, and you may ask a few questions after this, I would like to thank Neha Khanna and tGelf Foundation, World Connect, India Ahead News, Wellness Curated, Hospital Guide, and the Shift series for giving me the opportunity to do what I can to build courage and calmness in all of us since we are passing through a difficult time. Thank you very much. Questions are welcome.
Thank you very much, sir, for that inspiring talk. And I'm very sure that many people are going to benefit from it. I can tell you that there are people tuned in and watching and who've been listening to you with rapt attention from many different parts of the world. And many of them have written in to us with questions for you. People watching right now in the US, Switzerland, London, Singapore, many other parts of the world, and of course, right here in India. We have lots of questions. Let's see how many we can accommodate. Let's start with a question we have from Anshu Bahanda in London. She asks, given what we've seen in the current times, where one has felt a total loss of control over most things, one wonders if free will really exists. What's your view on that, sir?
In this situation, it's better to abandon this philosophical question on free will and try to apply our will to do what best we can. It's a philosophy. We can do that. Think about the philosophical question of free will when the pandemic is gone and we have time to sit down calmly and reflect under a peepal tree. But right now, I think the discussion on free will is not the context. The context is how to use our will to try our best to do what we can and not give up.
Okay, I guess that is sage advice. Leave that discussion for later once this pandemic is over. Let's move on to our next question. Ruma Menon from Singapore writes in to ask, how does a person get over the fear of seeing a doctor, someone who suffers from a white coat syndrome? My God, that must be challenging in these times of a pandemic if you have fear of a doctor.
Very true, very true. So consider, I know there are many people who don't like to see a white. Now there is a simple solution, ask them to change the color of their coats. I mean, anyway, let's not go into that. But the other solution is that don't consider doctors as someone who is going to cause some problem to you or harm to you. This must be some child, in childhood, this particular person must have had some bad experience with a doctor, I think. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I think, so we should get rid of this fear. In fact, they are the saviors. The good doctors. I mean, there are good doctors, there are bad doctors, and there are good engineers and bad engineers, and good godmen and bad godmen, and so on and so forth. So let's not get into. So I think you should deliberately practice getting rid of this fear of the doctor. In fact, if the doctor is a good person, you can tell he or she, please doc, I want to discuss my matters with you, but can you just take off that white coat and hang it somewhere so I don't have the fear of talking to you? Maybe that's the solution.
I certainly hope that Ruma gets over her fear. The next question is from Nipa Chatterjee in Delhi. Okay, this might be a difficult one, but let's see. What is the point of life if one can die of a virus? She asks.
Well, I think the life, as long as you live and enjoy it, is beautiful. So just because a virus has come, we didn't give up this way. We should say, let me face this, maybe I'll come out of this. Was before the pandemic came, before the virus came, have we ever asked this question? Why should we live? No. It's because we are faced with this danger that we are now asking this question. I think life is beautiful, so don't succumb to the virus by mentally saying what is the point of living when there is a virus. I think face it head on and say this shall also pass. You know, the Spanish flu of 1819 or 1918, I forget the year, was terrible. 30 million people lost their lives, more than the Second World War, and then we bounced back. So think of bouncing back. Don't think of why should we live because there is a virus that can kill us. This virus will also go just as the Spanish flu went one day. Maybe not too late, soon, before more people die, but that should be our attitude. And if that is our attitude, we may also be able to help others. There are so many people suffering. Yeah, suffering makes us think philosophically, I understand. But it should be also practical and helpful to other living beings. This is the most important thing.
Think of bouncing back. I think that is a big takeaway from what Sir is saying. Let's move on to our next question. This is a question that I think almost everybody is asking themselves today, sir. Anjali Ragbir from Delhi asks, how does one maintain a sense of peace during these times when you see people losing their loved ones? Almost everyone is living in fear today.
Yes, so one should consider the whole of humanity as one's own relatives. It's not that somebody's, that ancient story of how a lady who lost her only son went to the Buddha and said, you are the illumined, enlightened being, the Buddha, can you revive my son who just died? I have only one son. And Buddha didn't work a miracle or say anything. The greatest miracle was he made her understand that death is not only for her but for the whole world. Today, many people are dying quickly because of the pandemic, but death is something that is, when you are born, you can be sure at some time you are going to die. No question. There are nobody I have seen who has lived forever. Maybe, but that person may not have a physical body. Anyway, so the Buddha said, okay, please go to some of the houses around, find out a house where nobody has died and get me a mustard seed from there. And the poor lady went everywhere. There's not a single house where someone has not died at some point. So she came back and said, I couldn't find a mustard seed that way. And the Buddha said, so please understand that death is not only in your house, it is also in other houses. People die. So compassion, have compassion for those who suffer. Let's not get wrapped up only in our own suffering. And it's not easy, I understand. And your relative, your son or your daughter, your mother, somebody passes off, it's not easy. I understand all that. But we should take it calmly, because this is something that can happen to anybody, except that it's happening before our eyes and we see it. When the Vedantin at one point said everybody is going to die, nobody believed. Now we see it with our own eyes. Anytime, anything is possible. But as long as you're alive, try to live fully. Bring all energies together and let your energies be such that other people also feel it and they also are pulled out from the brink of death. This is the way we should live.
All right, as they say, the show must go on. Rabina Gupta from London has a question, sir. Building courage and calmness is good, but how do we sustain it and use it when we actually need it the most?
Right. So, therefore, the building of courage and calmness should start quite early and not only in an emergency. Which means then the mind has trained itself to act under all emergencies in the same way. So, it should start. Don't wait for an emergency to develop courage and calmness. Make it a part of your life. Every day try to improve yourself so that when you are faced with an emergency, it works. Otherwise, if you develop it only for a particular situation, it's not going to last and it's not going to work. So, consider courage and calmness to be something that we need all the time and start working on it right now, so that tomorrow when you are faced with a situation, it works. It suddenly cannot come up to you when you are in a situation. You have to develop it even when there are no situations. That's what I mean.
I think that's great advice even for me. We have to start now. You cannot
Yes,
start
you have
when
now.
a crisis strikes. You have
Now.
to start now.
Now,
That's great advice indeed. So there are also questions, lots of questions from our COVID warriors, doctors who've written in. Dr. Archana Devan, senior consultant at Hospital Guide Foundation, has this question for you. If the breadwinner of a family dies due to COVID, how does the rest of the family cope with that situation physically, mentally, emotionally? Please share survival techniques with us.
there is no way. It's a really difficult situation. Honestly, if the breadwinner of the family dies, and we see it happening, what do we do? So now, when I see this happening in a neighbor's house or somewhere, I and a group of people who are really interested in doing this should make sure that the others don't suffer. Emotionally, the suffering cannot be taken off. Only time can heal the wound. But the practicality of the breadwinner having gone, and therefore there is no bread at home, this can be solved. And we should treat them with great friendship and compassion, so that as time heals them, they get over this feeling. There is no other way it can be done. There is no, if I could have some access to blessing everybody and making them fine, I would have done it. But there's nothing like that. I don't have. We can only have good thoughts, try to help them as much as we can. But this wound of having lost your dear and near can only go in time. Only time can heal this. I sometimes wonder if even time can heal it. But we can make sure that they don't suffer due to the lack of the bread, not the bread earner. We can't do anything about that, but at least this we can look into, I think. And she's a doctor, whoever has asked this question, she knows this. I mean, I think without compassion and kindness, in these times at least, you cannot function as doctors. It's not possible. People will just run away. Look.
You're quite right, sir.
Yes.
Time alone can heal the pain, but certainly as a society, we can come together and help each other.
Help each other. You're right.
I think that is something that has given hope to a lot of us in recent weeks. When we've turned to each other, counted on the kindness of strangers during some very, very difficult times.
And practical things. practical things, not some
Yes.
superstitions. You go to this temple, you go to that church, you go to, no. What we can do hands on.
Totally agree, sir. The next question is from Dr. Anurag Bhargav, Medical Superintendent of Ghaziabad District Hospital. He asks, how do we end the negativity that we see amongst the masses?
First, let's start with ourselves, doctor. Uh, the negativity can be ended only when I become positive first. I see the need to fight this negativity, and I get like-minded people come together and talk to people, share their experiences. But I think everything starts from me, from myself. If I am positive, two negative people sitting near me will start feeling the positivity automatically. I don't have to do anything, you know. So it should start with me and getting together a group of individuals who are positive and who can go around and sit with the negativity and try to change it by talking to people, consoling them. There's no other way. If they're asking for any divine interference, I don't think the best divine interference in these matters is through our own heart, kindness, goodness. So that develops positivity. And it's a tall order. The whole world is negative to change. It's a tall order, but we can start from our home with our neighbors and then see what we can do.
You're quite right there. It starts with us. Positivity begets positivity. There are many questions from the students at tGelf, but we have time to take a few of those, not all.
Sure.
The first question is,
How many more
we're
minutes
all
do
used
we?
to finding,
Can you tell me how
I
many?
think another 5 minutes.
Okay, fine.
Another 5 minutes.
Thank
Is
you.
that okay with you?
Sure, I'm okay.
All right. Okay. So a student asks, we're all used to finding security in our parents and elders. How do we handle our emotions when they are feeling anxious in these uncertain times?
Right. So that is the time when you should become parents. Take over that role. Till now they were looking after you, right? You were secure in their hands. Now when they turn weak, when they are not there or they turn weak, they are sick and they get fear, you, I as a child, as the son or the daughter or the daughter-in-law or whatever, should take on the responsibility of looking after them. That's when I build my energy. You see, you say, all these days they were looking up, now I'm going to look after them. That increases my energy and I know how to handle this then. It's a question of developing it. It may not come naturally, right? For instance, suppose a daughter-in-law and mother-in-law were having a very bad fight for years. Suppose, I'm not saying everybody is not like that. And then came this pandemic. She is sick, the mother-in-law. I say, sink all your differences, throw that off and say, look, she's like a child now, let me look after her. Then what happens? Your energy increases. She also is lifted up from a different situation. I think that's the best way to do it. First, forgive, forget and move forward. And if they have looked after us, say that this is the time for me to pay back. Let me look after them. Let me be their father and mother. It's nothing so intimate as that.
Okay. All right. Now, the next question is from one of the students, but I think this is quite applicable even to me. The question is, can you will your anxiety and nervousness to go away, or do you have to work on it for a sustained period of time?
You need to work on it. You can will, but without the will you cannot find the way. But the way is to work on it and sustain it for a length of time till it becomes natural to you. That is the thing. The will is important because without the will there is no way. But it may not happen as soon as you will it. Then you need to sustain it, work on it. There are yogic ways of doing it. There are other ways of doing it. So you need to sustain it through work till it becomes a natural feeling for you.
It's not magic. We all have to work on it. We all have to work on ourselves.
Absolutely. I have worked on myself.
Right.
I'm 72 now. You know, I started at the age of 10 and I'm 72 physically, yes, but I don't feel it in my mind. So if I can do it, you can do it. I didn't fall from heaven. You see, I worked hard. This is very important.
Well, we certainly hope to seek inspiration from you. It will be very difficult to attain the level that you have attained, but we can all try in our own small ways.
Thank you.
Final question, sir.
Yeah.
So there are so many more, but we'll make this the last question.
Sure.
Are there any books you can recommend that can make one feel calm and relaxed?
Yes, couple of books. One is read the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. Right. If you like, you can also read one of my books, which is published by Penguin, called Meditation. On Meditation, On Meditation by Sri M. It's a Penguin publication. I'm not advertising the book. Since you asked me the question, I'm saying this. But please do read the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, where the dynamics of that energy of that man is explained in it in so many beautiful words. I think these two things, the Bhagavad-Gita, of course, but the Bhagavad-Gita has many translations. So you need to check on what translation you're reading. Thank you very much, Neha.
Well, sir, I'm very sure that all the books that you recommended, would be beneficial to all of us who've listened to you over the last 45 minutes. So we thank you for your time, for your inspiring talk. I'm sure it'll benefit all of us in some way or another, especially in these times, which are doubtless
Thank you.
challenging times.
Thank you.
For all of
Namaskar.
us and our loved ones.
Namaskar.
I take this opportunity, sir, to thank you for joining us, and I'd also like to very quickly thank the people who've brought this event together: tGelf, World Connect, Wellness Curated, Hospital Guide, and the Shift series. And again, a big and special thank you to Sri M for his time and his perspective. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure listening to you.
Thank you.